What we have to do is look at the sort of the personality of the group and set it up for a little bit of contention, a little bit of stress. You've got Brett, who's got, you know, hard, quantitative, short and medium term objectives. He's got a lot on his plate, you know, in terms of trying to globalize this Evo platform, which is absolutely critical to our business's survival and our, I'll call it, it's not even short-term goals, it's our goals over the next 2 or 3 years. You know, he feels a little burdened having to spend as much time and energy on a hybrid program that is, it's not, the end game is not well defined at this point. So he's naturally not going to gravitate to that, just based on his job and his responsibilities. Then I've got Pierre, who's set up to spend time thinking about where we have to go, what we're not, what we need to be. I mean, his role is to make people like Brett uncomfortable.
My job as the marketing leader for the business is to make sure this business is still alive and is bigger in 5-10 years from now. So I have a natural bias by construction to support every program, every new product that I think can contribute to the business being bigger and being still alive down the road. Because many companies and many great companies have disappeared just because they have missed one of the big technology shifts affecting their industry. On the other hand, Brett's objective is to make his numbers for the quarter and for the year. And I was a P&L leader for many years. I fully understand his objectives. I would behave exactly the same way if I was in his position. But when he hears about spending millions of dollars on a program that's kind of long-term, uncertain, where technology has not really been proven yet anywhere else in the industry, of course he gets a little bit scared, you know, because it's not helping him be successful today, it's not helping him be successful next year even, and it's just more workload, more stress, and no immediate payback for him. Similarly, I'm sometimes inclined to support some investment programs even before we have a good value story for the program. So my colleagues who are P&L leaders sometimes coach me on the fact that you know, I can't support investing millions in a program before I've actually demonstrated that this can become a profitable product line. So we're kind of balancing each other.
It's sort of our traditional view with a hybrid. You know, before we were going through monthly discussions on this, it was comfortable because it was a program that was way out there, and we could talk about it with very broad strokes. When we started to create the operating rigor around growth and turn this into a more monthly discussion, a more tactical discussion, the first thing that happened is we realized that we've had some real challenges in here technically. Finally, we were staring at economics. It just didn't work. You know, the incremental cost of the hybrid capability more than offset the benefits, the operating benefits. So as we started to dig into those things, and now we reached a point where we were smarter. That was the good news, but that we weren't as bullish. Particularly people like Brett, who had to take money from other programs and feed this program, which, you know, given these bright lights and given the numbers he was staring at, really didn't feel like a you know, proper use of his resources or his capital. Pierre has to look at the world changing around us and the directions that the winds are blowing in those markets, and he gets a lot more comfortable with it. Again, he's not on the hook for delivering this in the short term, and it's not his capital that's going into the program, but he's got to be looking out over the markets and saying, you know, Brett, this thing could play in a lot of directions. It was okay that Brett didn't see it in the short term, because we can't guarantee things in the long term when it comes to a huge platform like this. Then we call it an IB, which raises the stress level. Not only are you responsible for delivering a product, you're responsible for delivering an imagination breakthrough. Brett most of the P&L leaders feel like they have to have the answer before they begin. It's something that we drive into a pure P&L answer. He's got to be able to come to the council and he's got to explain to me, John, we're going to invest this much money, and in 5 or 6 years, this is what the unit's going to look like. This is how it's going to perform. These are going to be the economics around it. This is how much the battery will be cost. This is where the battery will be produced. And at the end of the day, it's bullshit. We don't know. We don't know the answers to all those questions. We make them up. We put them on paper. But at the initial stages, we don't know. When Pierre went off to the IB meeting, we knew we weren't going to take it off the list. It's too big. It was too important. What I wanted him to do is to be honest about the challenges that we saw with the program. That's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of depth. It shows that we're actually digging into it and that we're trying to understand what we're getting ourselves into.
And we were just being very honest with the chairman, which is always a good idea, you know. The surprise during the meeting was when Jeff told me, you know, we have this Ecomagination event in California in 5 or 6 months from now, and I love the hybrid program. I will fund it, I will support it, but I will give you the money to fund it if you can show me a prototype, not just a nice mock-up, but something that's actually working at the end of May in Los Angeles during the Ecomagination event. So that was a surprising part of the meeting, you know. And I'm here in Fairfield in the headquarters in this meeting room. And when you're in this kind of situation in GE with Jeff Immelt, you don't ask him, okay, can I give a few phone calls? Can I get you the answer tomorrow? You just have to say yes or no immediately. If you say yes and you don't deliver, you're in trouble. If you say no just to be safe without really thinking about it, you're in trouble too, okay? And I mean, 6 months for most companies would be a very, very short timeline to do that. GE is just a great company when it comes to getting people mobilized and execute on a given project. So I just decided to make the commitment because I mean I have some engineering background. I've been a P&L leader again, so I know this kind of things can be realistic if we put the right effort. So I just decided to go for it.
That meeting was not a conclusion to anything. It was a reaffirmation. It was us agreeing to go to the next step, to keep supporting it. But the tensions that we had going into that meeting, I think, are going to be with us for a long time. Probably until well after that product is launched in the marketplace. I think Brett still is challenged by the trade-offs that he's got to make every day to support us chasing our dream here. Because he's got other, you know, every day he's got to make decisions about other things that he might not do or doesn't have the resources to do because we're doing this. So he'll always be asking questions and challenging, raising his hand and saying, you know, should we go in this direction or should we go at this pace or this level of spending? Brett and I had a discussion on the plane the other night, and he did. He reminded me that I'm holding him accountable for the short term, and that he has to deliver on the short term and the medium term. And at the same time, I'm forcing him to invest and support a hybrid program that's, in his view, clearly isn't going to do anything in the short to medium term and may not manifest itself in any form of financial success in the long term. And what I had to remind Brett was that in the rest of his business, he's having a pretty good time right now. He's commanding an excellent share in a strong North American market. He's driving, he's expanding margins due to some of the cost out work that he's doing, and now he's able to go into markets around the world that he never could be in. He's got a great product, and Brett wasn't here 6 or 7 or 8 years ago when somebody decided to spend a couple $100 million on that great product. Somebody else made a bet on an Evo platform. And Brett has inherited that platform that other people, it was certainly a drag on his predecessors' short-term earnings, and asked him what he was going to leave for the Brett McGoal 5 years from now or 6 years from now.
After 6 months working really hard on this program, we actually feel even better about it. It looks like a bigger potential market than what we were anticipating. When doing the market analysis and the financial modeling for the hybrid program, we had very clear data and estimates on what the cost of the batteries, for example, needed to be to make it a winning product. And then as we looked at that, and as we looked at the battery technology with potential partners or with our experts in our R&D centers, we figured out that to be able to reach this kind of battery price per unit, we needed probably a much bigger volume than what the rail market would be able to bring us. And that's really how, following this process, we started to look at not just locomotives, but as John was saying earlier, other product lines where we could have applicability for the battery technology. We were forced into looking at the bigger opportunity just because of the value story on the battery. So sometimes your market analysis constraints could actually kill the story in a way, but can also make the story even better because it's forcing you to look at the bigger picture.
In the last Growth Playbook meeting, somebody had a very interesting idea, which was, should we start looking at the battery as an adjacency? It's a little different in that usually we have the product, we have the engine, and we start asking ourselves, can we develop this into another business by selling the engine into a brand new segment? What is both very exciting and at the same time daunting is that somebody asked this question before we even had the battery technology in hand. We haven't even proven it out on the locomotive yet, and they're asking whether or not we should set up a small startup business that starts to look to other markets that may need the same kind of battery technology.